Thank you for joining us today to our new webinar about ISO 20700, how to differentiate yourself in front of your clients with the first global standard for management consulting that enhances your client's experience. My name is Otto Acuna. I'm the chair of professional development in CMCGI, and I thank you everyone for being here today. With me is Dwight who is our ISO 2700 trainer, and who will be the one expert person that we will be conversing today. Good morning, Dwight, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity and looking forward to the discussion today.
For today, let me just, the agenda that we have today is we have a very brief 30-second message from Tamara Abdel-Jaber. She is our chair in CMCGI about this webinar, which is very important for us. And after that, we'll start the conversation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamara Abdel-Jaber. As the chair of the Global Institute of Certified Management Consultants, I'm happy to welcome you to this webinar. As you all know, with your work as management consultants, standardization and excellence are the mark of a good consulting practice and are the mark of the work of a good consultant. These are things that your clients appreciate. And hence, this webinar and talking more about the ISO 2700 is an important milestone in your journey as management consultants to make sure that you introduce those standardized practices, standardized methodologies, and ensure that you provide excellent and consistent consulting service to your clients. Enjoy the webinar, and I look forward to stay in touch. Thank you.
So, Dwight, again, thank you for being today with us. And let me introduce Dwight. Dwight is the president of his own consulting company, Effective Managers. He is a management consultant with a lot of experience. He is currently the chair of ICMCI, the International Council of Management Consulting Institutes. And also, we have the privilege of having him as our main trainer for ISO 2700 in GI, as he is part of our board also. Thank you, Dwight. And let's start rolling with the conversation about ISO. For our audience new to the ISO standard, tell us what is it and why should consultants care about it?
Thank you very much, Otto, and thanks for the opportunity. It's my pleasure to be talking to you today. I recognize many of the names here, and some of you I don't know, but it's always a pleasure to talk with consultants. And I always welcome this kind of format where it's open discussion. So if you have a question while you're going through this, please ask the question either in the chat box. Otto will help me to monitor that, or unmute yourself and ask the question. I'm game to do that because we want to have a good quality Q&A at the end anyway. So I'm just as happy to use that time while the question is fresh in your mind. For some of you that are new to membership in CMC Global Institute, just to set the scene, that ICMCI, the International Council of Management Consulting Institutes, is the global body. And it has member institutes in various geographical areas around the world. So Canada, my home, US, I see Jerry's here from the US. So the IMC US is an institute. In Europe, we have them in Asia and so on. So each one of them is a member institute accountable for membership of management consultants and certification of management consultants in those areas. We realized many years ago, I guess 5 or 6 years ago, that's not many, 5 or 6 years ago, that there was a real gap in the rest of the world where there wasn't an institute. So the CMC Global Institute was created to offer management consulting services anywhere in the world where where there was no existing institute. So that creates that opportunity to have worldwide coverage. So I know there's always confusion between CMC Global and CMC Global Institute. So CMC Global Institute is a member of ICMCI. So in terms of ISO 20700, it's the first services standard that ISO has ever put in place. So we were really pleased because as ICMCI, we were taking a lead with ISO to say that we did need and did want to have a standard, which would be a global standard for the provision of management consulting services. And up until that point in time, ISO really only focused in on those process kinds of standards. Think ISO 9001, for example. So, so the difference, though, is that in terms of a service provision standard, ISO said that it is not certifiable, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But it was very important to us, and we were actually involved very closely with ISO in the development of this standard. And in fact, one of the current directors of the board of ICMCI was the chair of that working group. So we can get into more details as we go forward, but in broad strokes, it's really about how what is the baseline for how the professional management consultants contracts, delivers, and closes management consulting projects.
Dwight, tell us a little bit about why ICMCI took the lead on promoting and training the new standard. What was the thought behind that?
One of the big challenges that we have as institutes, and I know you face those in your home institutes, and we certainly face it in CMCGI, is that there's a very low entry barrier to entry to the management consulting profession. In most countries of the world, if someone wants to be a consultant, they can print a business card that says, I am a consultant, and they go out and they are a consultant. So there's a lack of this, of a standard of the provision of the service. Through our institutes, we do provide the Certified Management Consulting standard, which is a certifiable program, but this requires a lot more. It requires experience, it requires successful programs, and so on. So we really wanted something that sets this baseline for management consulting professionals. So ICMCI definitely took the lead to try to have this global standard in place.
When initially the standard was deployed in 2017, what was the reaction of the market? The client,
yeah, I guess fairly, it was slow. There wasn't a big reaction in the marketplace because most people don't sit by monitoring what ISO is doing in terms of new standards. So it falls on us as ICMCI and as national institutes to really figure out how do we start building visibility. So a lot of the work that we've been doing at ICMCI has been to create tools to help management consultants be better prepared to use the ISO 20700 standard. And in parallel with that, build initiatives to work with client-facing organizations with client organizations, for them to understand what the standard is and why that's an important benchmark for allocation of management consulting contracts.
Beyond the initial surprise that it was a slow start, has there been any unexpected or other things regarding in these 4 years the deployment of the standard?
Unexpected, I'm not so sure, but it's been a journey for sure. And the journey has been around figuring out how to take a standard, which was developed by ISO, certainly with a lot of management consultants on the working groups, and they were representative from different countries of the world. But when you go to implement the use of such a standard that is not certifiable, it's a new way of doing things. So we did have a working group set up at ICMCI that worked out to create what we call the checklist. And the checklist is really a means of implementing the ISO 20700 standard. So it's a tool that can go in the toolbox of management consultants to help them use the standard in an effective way and in as transparent a way as possible with the client organization. So as we developed that toolbox, The journey has been getting feedback from consultants who have taken the course and continually improving both the checklist and the support materials and the case studies that we do in the training program, and really getting as good a training experience as possible. The other challenges that we have, of course, are language and availability of people. So the language is, how do we get this available to people who are not comfortable working in English? And now more and more people are being trained in other languages. Yourself, Otto, for example, are now trained and will soon be launching a course in Spanish. We have Arab-trained speakers and more countries with different languages now starting to pick up the course as well. So we're really looking forward to that. The second is the the availability of people to take the program. For CMCs, it's about a 4-hour, about a half-a-day course. When we first started, we envisioned that they would all be face-to-face courses, but of course, in 2020, we soon realized that wouldn't be the case. So we did develop the virtual version of providing the course and doing the training online. And at GI, I've been working with you, Otto, to have a learning management system version of the course. So it's online so that people can learn at their own pace. So it's, as I say, not so much unexpected, but it has been a journey of continuous improvement.
Could you run us perhaps I have seen some of the some colleagues from other IMC institutes and as well as CMCGI, but there are also some people who is completely new to ICMCI, as this was a public webinar. So I think it might be important to make a parenthesis and explain a little bit what is the CMC certification and what it implies for a consultant, and why you mentioned that ISO20700 is a baseline, which is more process-based.
Okay. I said it would be a discussion, but I actually put together 3 slides, and I thought that this question might come up, and you and I did have the discussion, in fairness. But I think this would be a good time to just share that with you, because I think it is a really important distinction that we would want to make, is to understand what is the difference. So the key thing that we have to bear in mind is that the CMC, the Certified Management Consultant designation, is something that is owned by, I'll use the word federation, the federation of all of the institutes around the world, as coordinated and overseen by ICMCI. So ICMCI basically is the holder of the standard and accredits institutes to deliver that standard, to deliver the CMC certification to consultants within their countries, and to support them in an ongoing way with that. When it comes to the ISO20700 standard, that mark, ISO, is that name, that brand is owned by ISO, so it's a third-party designation. So we are using the ISO standard in a way to support others. So I think that key distinction, that CMC is owned and delivered by us and our institutes, and the ISO standard is owned by others. So the CMC standard is very robust. So people have to prove, this is a model of the competency framework. Those of you that are already CMCs will know this. Oh, and by the way, very exciting, we are updating the competency framework, and this should be approved by our next annual meeting which is in October 2021. So really excited about that. But nonetheless, this is the standard. It's the only existing standard, global standard for certification of management consultants, and it requires experience, usually the equivalent of about 3 years, but it's in hours. It requires a demonstration of competence in the delivery of consulting services by getting testimonials and studies and forms completed by client organizations. And it requires demonstration of expertise, both in your own specialty, but also in the provision of management consulting services. It requires your peers, those peers in your institute, through an assessment process, usually an oral assessment, to interview you and ascertain themselves that you have that qualification and that you can join that institute as a certified management consultant. So there's a real pathway to to get through that. And it's an important one. It's we think of the CMC designation as the jewel in the crown of the profession. It's one of the the only profession actually in the world that I'm aware of that has reciprocity around the world. So if you get the CMC from any institute or the Global Institute anywhere in the world, it's recognized in any other country by that institute. The last part about the CMC that makes it so powerful is that the ongoing professional development is built into that. And this becomes a critically important aspect of how we as management consultants ensure that we're fresh and up to speed and doing the best work that we can. The ISO 20700 comes at it from a different perspective. This isn't about the competency of the consultant. This is about the delivery of the project. So the standard starts in a very formal way, as ISO standards do. Any of you that have been working with them would know this. It has the scope, terms, definitions, principles, and those can be very helpful to us in our toolbox to use those definitions in a standard way. And then it talks about the 3 phases and outlines in the contracting phase. What are the general things you need to think about? What's the purpose of the contracting phase? And then what input do you require? What are the outcomes that are expected? And then what are the specific contents that should be in the contract and that should be considered in the contracting phase? The second part of the standard then deals with the execution. So given everything that we've done in the contracting phase, again, what's the general statements about the execution, purpose, input, outcome, and contents. And then the third part is the closure. How do we know when we're done the project? So all of these things have to be thought of course, and documented in the contracting phase, but the ISO 20700 standard lays that all out. And then finally, there are 12 policies that have been put in place that are the 12 most common issues that management consultants need to deal with. So there are suggested policies that could be used in larger complex projects. They could be used as guidelines to addendums. In smaller projects, they can be used as content to think about what we need to be thinking about as management consultants. So the work that we've done at ICMCI is to take this standard and create a checklist. So rather than having to kind of work this out every time that you have a client, is to have a standard checklist for small projects or for larger, more complex projects to walk you through or to guide you as the management consultant in conversations with the client to ensure that you're documenting and having consistently common understanding on all of these factors so that there's complete transparency with respect to the project. So that felt like a real webinar for a minute, but I thought it'd be helpful just to give you those images as I was walking you through them.
So perhaps you have mentioned our LMS, and we have several versions of the ISO training. Mm-hmm. It's not just one. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit, what different types of versions we have of the training.
Sure. It's been a pleasure actually working with you, Otto, in figuring out how to translate a half-day session for CMCs into an online learning session, and that's taken a while, but we've come up with some approaches that we're really proud of, and creating bite-sized chunks so that people can learn at their own speed as they wish to. But it doesn't start with the CMC, because I think there's huge value for certified management consultants to take the training and learn how to use the ISO standard and kind of add that ISO brand as an additional accreditation to their toolbox, if you will. But there are others who are members of institutes that are not yet certified management consultants. So we have a program for them as well. So it's the same module as the certified management consulting module, which really is all about the standard, has case studies and group work around understanding how to use it, so you come out well equipped at the end of it. So we add a 2-hour module in front of that, again in smaller chunks that are easy to digest, which is really talking about management consulting from the perspective of a member of the institute, and that path to certification and collaboration amongst others, and so on. There's then a third module, which we have added at the very front of that. So if someone is thinking about becoming a management consultant or is new to the profession and not yet a member, that they can take all three modules and really start at the beginning, which is what is consulting as a profession, what are some of the elements of the profession, how do you manage a practice, all of those things are built in at the very front end. So we have those three modules, and I know we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but then we also are now developing a module for client organizations as well.
Okay, perhaps I would just add to that we have a bundle in CMCGI. So if you are not a member and you want to take the ISO 20700 for new to the profession or non-members, then you get also a discount for the applicable to the membership of the institute.
That's right. Thank you.
So let's talk about for client organizations. We have spoken, and I will add a little bit here to phrase. So far, when we think about client organizations, of course, as management consultants, our clients usually, the CEO or a functional manager is the one who hires us. But I'm sure we have all seen terrible practices when hiring consultants. So perhaps you can elaborate a little bit more on the type of audiences that we are trying to target with clients.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit of a moving target from my perspective right now, because as we develop them, I think we might get more precision, and as we start implementing them, just as we did with our checklist training, we will be continuously improving them. But I see two main markets. One is the executives or owners, those people, the decision makers, yeah, those who are thinking about getting management consulting services. So there, I think a very short, precise module about what is ISO 20700 and why can it help you? What is the CMC certification? Why can it help you? So we'd bring that in together. The second is that we would think about those that are in procurement offices and have something that's more sophisticated, more along the lines of our checklist training, where we would get into deeper levels of discussion with them and deeper levels of training, so that they would have probably some kind of certificate of completion for that course as well.
If anyone wants to know a little bit more about the program, where can they find more information about the ISO 20700 program?
The best way is checking out the website, and that was the second share screen thing that I wanted to do with my colleagues today, is just quickly show you where you can learn more. So the first place to go is under a website which is dedicated to ISO 2700. So you can see right here, ISO20700.org. And this is just loaded with information about ISO 2700. The who we are part is about ICMCI and so on. But the most relevant for you is community. So if you come to community, you can see that there's some commentary and discussion about the toolbox, which I've been talking about now. There's the list of accredited institutes, and I know some of you are from countries that are not within the CMC Global Institute area. So you can go to this page, and you can find all of the accredited institutes. And so if you're in Canada, if you're in the Caribbean, if you're in Hungary, you can click on that one. You can find out who the accredited trainer is there and send an email off to that person to find out when the training programs are in place. So we're under CMC Global Institute, and we now provide the training for anywhere in the world where there's not an institute. But if there's not accredited trainers in your institute, the current approach is that you can take the training through the CMC Global Institute. until they have their training program in place. The other part about community that's really interesting is this is one of the benefits of taking the program is you can get the list of trained consultants as well. So you can go down there and by country, you can find out those consultants that have been trained. Let's just click on the Caribbean here. So you can see all of the consultants in the Caribbean that have already been trained in ISO 20700. So it's just a way of promoting those consultants that have been in place and have done that. The other, this is a PS, but of interest is that other organizations are starting to see this standard of importance outside of the management consulting field. So the European Bank, who does provide training to consultants and to management consultants, has licensed our checklist and provides that as part of some of the training programs they do. And this consulting organization, Food Service Consultants, who are not management consultants, but they use the checklist and have licensed the training from us on that as well. The other place to learn, and this is if you're interested in the program, is to go to cmcgi.org. cmcgi.org. And this is the website for the Global Institute. And you can see here the ISO 2700 training. Just click on that. And you have all of the information here. I guess I wrote this, I have to say, and it's probably not the prettiest from the perspective of marketing, but it's full of good information. We do have on here some testimonials from some of the people that have already taken the program. So if you want to get some ideas about how people like the course, you can, and what they thought of it, you can get that there. We talk about the training objectives, the benefits, what you receive from that, the pricing for the different options, which range from 99 euros to 169, and the fourth one being a bundle where 50 euros is applied to your first year membership fee. And then you identify, are you a CMC? Are you a member of an institute? And you want to learn more? Are you new to the profession, or do you want that bundle offer? So if you're new to the profession, you can click on that one, and then you find out the specific information about that, and there's the information. Just to let you know, that does come back to the Effective Managers website, where I have the information under my consultants e-learning section of my own webpage, just for the registration process to keep it as possible.
I will add to that is because we are using your payment gateway to be able to, to speed up the process. We right now are using Dwight's payment gateway. We will soon probably in GI have our own payment gateway, but for the time being, it is much more faster than what we used to have, back in 2019, which was a slower process with the accreditation or the registration. So we thank Dwight for that.
It's all part of our continuous improvement, for sure.
So let's talk about. I think it's reaching to the closing of this conversation. Let's talk a little bit about the learning path of a consultant. Because whether you are a very seasoned person or a new to the profession person, I think that and we have been discussing this in PD. What's the roadmap for a consultant? How are we envisioning, and perhaps how are we thinking on filling up the different gaps of and the different personas who might be benefit to that?
This is a fundamental question that ICMCI is dealing with, and I think most institutes are, well, actually all institutes are dealing with now, is that for the profession, the advancement of the profession and ensuring that our profession is as healthy and as widespread as possible, we really need to think about and be aware of what new entrants into the profession see as value-added services that we can provide to them. And keep in mind all of our existing members, some of whom have been members for a long time. What are the value-added services that they get from being a member of the Institute or for being a certified management consultant? So there is a pathway, and I think the pathway starts with I use the word affiliation because it's out there. How do we attract people who are thinking about becoming consultants, or who are mid-career and are just about to transition into consulting? What can we get out there that these people would say, gosh, I've got to connect with that institute so I can learn this? Is it a training program? Is it a tool? What is it? So we're searching. We've got task forces, and we're working hard to make ourselves available to and visible to those who want to enter the profession. Once we're through that affiliation perspective, there is a membership part, and the membership part has something to do with the entry level to the profession. So I think ISO 20700 is one of those things where we can attract new people through affiliation, so they don't have to be a member to take the ISO 20700 training program. But having taken it, they can realize that there is something to the profession, more than saying I am a consultant, and more than selling your expertise part-time to client organizations. And we all know as consultants ourselves that there is more to it than that. Then there's probably another step, which is a certification program, and this is something we're exploring now at the Global Institute, and I know other institutes, some have this, and others are thinking of it, an entry-level certification where someone who may not have the experience or the client projects under their belt yet, but who really wants to take the more education than ISO 2700 training than ISO 2700 provides to really learn about being a management consultant. So we're working on that. The next progression then is, having had that in place and being that entry-level certified consultant, to continue to build the experience, to build the client engagements, and become a certified management consultant. Following that, I think equally important to the certification is the ongoing professional development. There's no question in my mind that for us to be the best we can in our profession, we need to be collaborating with each other. We have to be learning from each other, and the institutes provide huge value in providing this networking opportunity for us to share best practices, to build projects together, and so on. And at ICMCI, we're building now that global network through things like the CMC Global Registry, where consultants individually who want to collaborate with other consultants in other parts of the world can join that institute and use that as a framework or a platform for communicating with each other. I went on a little bit more there than I probably should have, but I'm really passionate about how we can build ourselves as a profession, and doing that in a collaborative way.
Why haven't I asked you already? Is there any other area related to ISO or the roadmap that we haven't spoken about? Just wondering.
I think possibly one part, and I think I intended to answer this earlier, and it slipped my mind, is that in terms of ISO 2700, I showed you on the website where you get registered. In addition to that, anyone that completes the program will get a certificate that's issued by ICMCI, so it is a global recognition, and then the right to use the ISO 2700 checklist trained logo. So I mention that because this becomes a means, the more consultants that are trained in this, and that the more that are talking about it, and the more that are using it with their clients, the better it will be, because it starts to build visibility. So using the checklist trained logo becomes really important in that. The other thought I would just close with, and I started in when I talked about the pathway, is that there's no question from the work we've been doing at ICMCI and from the experiences I've had as chair collaborating with consultants around the world, the pace of change is increasing. The risk of disruption to our client organizations is increasing. COVID-19 was a huge wake-up call in terms of a global disruption, but there's so many pathways to disruption for our client organizations now that we as as consultants need to be aware that we have to be leading edge in all ways. So collaborating together in any way that we can to learn from each other and to share information and to build and strengthen our methods of helping client organizations solve problems become really, really important. So that's not exactly ISO 20700, but I just wanted to raise that flag for the importance of the profession. The role of the Institute and the role of collaboration amongst consultants will not go away. We just need to figure out a better way of packaging that for new entrants so that we can build our membership.
Perhaps, Dwight, I think we might open the mic to everyone to see, if anyone has a comment or a question to Dwight. Please feel free to just unmute yourself and shoot.
And while you're thinking about that, I have a text question from Padraig here. Dwight, is there a possibility that CMC certification process would be overcomplicated with ISO standards when clients buy on experience and solutions? So I agree with you 100%. Clients do buy on experience and solutions, and more so, and that's going to increase in the future. So more and more, we're seeing that client organizations are not necessarily going to the big brand. They're going to the person that can deliver the solution they need and support them in that solution. But I don't see ISO 2700 as overcomplicating it. I see it as the next step. So after they're involved, is providing you with a simple tool, a checklist, which you can use with the client to walk through to ensure that there's a complete mutual understanding of the project. So ISO 2700 is not so much about adding extra process, it's about how do you ensure transparency between the client organization and the management consulting service provider so that there's no surprises either during or at the close of the project. So
perhaps,
go ahead.
No, I just, perhaps I'll just make a small commercial on here, is because we are actually thinking on that. How do you take the training list is a great tool, but we are thinking in professional development, how do we share best practices? So we will check in the future. We will be doing what we call a BPP. Best practices and projects, which is a format where we, it's basically a meeting where we share what are we doing. So we are thinking on doing a BPP on how do you actually, from a practical perspective, implement the ISO into your, what is everyone doing, and be a vehicle for sharing information about how are you incorporating that into your proposals, into your conversations, into your articles, or anything else?
Thanks, Otto. Those kinds of activities are really important. So any questions? Let's get the discussion going. Who's going to be the brave first one?
This is really, I think, to say what Dwight said, but maybe a little different. And one of the aspects of my professional life is litigation support. So when it comes to my desk in that context, people are suing each other because things blew up. And one of the things about ISO 20700 in my mind is there is that process. But if you really haven't been schooled in it, then it's pretty much an ad hoc process. So the whole virtue of ISO 20700 is to give you some basic steps to touch in the terms of contracting and conducting and closing an engagement down. Any of you that have worked for large CPA firms, for example, know they have a lot of checklists, and those checklists are there both offensively and defensively to be sure that you've done everything you need to do. So on a smaller scale, you've got that same sort of methodology then being applied to consulting to help make us more effective, keep us out of the fire rather than in the line of fire. So in terms of overly complicating things, I wouldn't say it's an issue of overly complicating, but it is ensuring, I hate to use that word, but anyway, ensuring that as you do the initial contracting and through this, that you do the sorts of things that are going to have not a guarantee, but get you in that more likely to be successful in your project. So I see that as both great for the client and also to an extent kind of defensive things that we as consultants should do just to be sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
I think I've just re-said what you've said, Dwight, in different language.
No, I appreciate it though, Jerry. I think it's very well said, and I agree with you. It can't be a guarantee, but it is a risk mitigation strategy because you are going through more process, and you know, even in the case study number 1 we do, which is a really light, easy, fun case study where consultants are working with each other. When you walk through the checklist, what seemed like a fairly straightforward contract, so let's shake hands and go on and do the work. When you walk through the checklist, all of a sudden it starts raising questions in your mind. Oh, wait, maybe we should have a conversation about this or about that, just to make sure that we have a common understanding. I'm sorry, Otto, I interrupted.
Oh, I just much in the way of what Gerald has just said. You know, I am in a project currently that with an organization, a financial services organization, this is my 21st project in 10 years. So the other day, when we were in the process of contracting this, they told me I usually have a very thorough best practice type of proposal, which is usually with all the details and everything. It goes from 20 to 50 pages usually. So actually the hiring manager, the contracting manager told me, we love your work and we have seen thousands of times your proposal. So let's try to do a little bit, let's do a PowerPoint for your, for your what you are telling us to say, and we'll go with that. So so all the contracting process and the process of getting them aligned and saying yes was in a 10-page PowerPoint, very graphical. But the ISO 20700 at the end, what I'm using it for example, is that once we start, I just fill it out with the main things and just send it and say, let's use it as an acceptance form, and so that even though I use it, I PowerPoint them into the project, I get to cover at least the basics of for mitigation from my side, and for them to make sure, so they asked, what is this? So I started, it gave me an opportunity to explain why this is important, and this covers your risks, so that you make sure that I am aligned with what you have in your head, even though we PowerPointed everything.
Yeah, it's this shared communication and ensuring that you're getting the right degree of common understanding without overdoing it. I love the idea, the concept of getting down these huge contracts. When I started in consulting, very often we would be doing very large projects just on a handshake because you knew the client. But then we went the other part, where the other direction completely, where procurement got involved, and all of a sudden you had clauses up the yin yang that were very hard to understand. So it just went way too far in the other direction, and to find that middle of the road balance is helpful. And I think ISO 20700 can help us do that. Jerry, you said 20,700. That's the way I should be pronouncing it. I go the 2,700, but 20,700 I think is more correct.
That's yes. It drove me nuts at first because I was looking for it and I'm looking with the wrong numbers. Hold it, that's the cybersecurity ISO.
Yeah, 2,700 is 2700, and that's the way Google transcribes it actually as well.
Thank you, Dwight, for everything. To everyone, thank you for being here today. And I would like to ask you to send me a comment to PD, to professional development, that is profdevelopment at cmcgi.org. Send us a comment if you like this format. You know, we try to make it a little bit more lively, and we hope we reach that objective. But please do give us feedback, and stay tuned for our next webinars in the row. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Dwight, for sharing with us your experience.
My pleasure. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.